Watching NewsX, I am Rishabh Gulati. If you've been tracking us for the past several years, you would have found that there are certain forward-looking future affairs, both in terms of geostrategy and defense policy and space and semiconductors and solar power generation and the things that we want to work out, we spend a lot of our editorial and news time on, because this will shape the future of who we become. It merits our conversation. To some extent, if I were to condense them all into a very readable book explaining India's journey so far in the past 10, 15 years and what the plans should be, what the vision statement should be in terms of technology and governance, and bring them into a ready reckoner, it would be this book which I've read over the past 24 hours. It's called Advantage India and it's written by Anil Antony. And Anil Antony is joining us on the telecast. Let me introduce him first. Anil comes from a political family in Kerala. He has been an engineer, studied in Thiruvananthapuram. He is alumni of Stanford. He's worked in Cisco and Grant Thornton and worked in the tech sector. And he's come back to India. He's now currently the National Secretary of the Bharatiya Janata Party and a national spokesperson. But he represents a forward-thinking vision, which is encapsulated in what I think is his first book, Anil.
Yes.
As I said, it was a treat reading this because semiconductors, space, defense, but also looking at the strategic context of these things and where they fit into the governance structure of India is so important. And you've written it so well. It was a very easy read. And thank you for that. So let me begin with how you introduce this book, because the understanding of who we are and where we are going is very important. And you write, we are not just balancing great powers, we are bringing new ideas to the table. Now, I can think of Solar Alliance or something like that. What is the new idea that India is bringing to the world table?
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words, and it's a pleasure being in the studio today. India right now, like my book is about India. Essentially, it is about India and the transformation India is having from the time of independence, where we were a very dependent emerging power, to a country which I can very proudly say now we are past that, and now we are one of the global powers. Like, we may not be in the same great power conversation even now because of various reasons, but we are reaching there. The world is changing quite a lot. It is becoming a very diffuse multipolar world. And in this diffuse multipolar world, whatever combinations you look in the global stage, it is impossible to not have India in that conversation. So this is where I begin. Now you ask, what are the ideas India is bringing to the table? Right now, the world is going through a structural reshift where things are getting very disruptive. After the Cold War, after the end of the Cold War, the world was unipolar for a long time. Then over a period of time, there was the rise of China also. And now, even now, both these countries are talking about a G2, etc. But I, as an Indian and I, as a person who follows many of these trends, I personally don't think that this is the trajectory the world is going to. The unipolar world of the past is slowly coming to an end. It is not a bipolar world. It is becoming a diffuse multipolar world where there are different poles that are emerging. Many of the poles used to be fairly, aligned to one of the poles over a period of time. For example, European Union, it is an economic powerhouse, but they don't have certain hard capacities in certain other areas. All these, Japan, Russia, these are all different poles, and now they are all trying to be more independent in their own decision making, which we call it strategic autonomy.
Okay, but thinking has changed. Vision has changed. We're looking to be exactly what you're defining us. Who do we want to be? We don't want to simply be just hanging in there. We want to matter and for our people. But it only really translates into the engine of India if it translates to what is the Antyodaya, last man, last person in this context. So you write in your first chapter about a new social contract. Now, on face value, we can understand that the welfare schemes that need to translate to people. What is this new social contract?
Thank you. So especially if you look at the last 10, 12 years, like overall, I account from the time of independence in different manner. But if you're looking at the last 12 years, since our Prime Minister started leading the country, since Narendra Modi ji started leading this country, there had been a systematic change of view of how we view development projects itself. In the last 10, 12 years, consistently, we were the fastest growing economy. But our focus was not just GDP or something like that. It was actually creating capacity. And it was also ensuring that while we create capacity and grow as a country, we ensure that our entire population of 1.4 billion are a part of this growth story some way or the other. So, as a country, a 2 trillion economy has now become a 4.4 trillion economy. It is the fourth largest economy in the world. By the end of this decade, we are expected to be a 7.5 trillion economy, the third largest economy. But alongside that, something which we are seeing is one, there is tremendous capacity building that is happening. And many of this capacity building in many of the sectors I mentioned, from semiconductors to AI to defense to space, all this is giving us global heft, which actually it gives us global heft and diplomatic heft. But alongside this, the social contract aspect is upliftment of our people. We have 1.4 billion people. Our median age is 29. We are a very young population. Around 1 million people enter the employment stream every year. And it is always for a policymaker and the government a great challenge to ensure that we meet the aspirations of the people. And something we have very successfully done in the last 12 years, and we have an even more extensive plan for the coming years and decade, is that we want to give avenues of mobility. And for that, hundreds of schemes have been created from, I wouldn't even call it welfare schemes. I would call it empowerment schemes, like, where from, and these are all done in massive scale. There are housing yojana, 7 crore plus beneficiaries, Jal Jeevan Mission, 10 crore plus beneficiaries, Ayushman Bharat plan, which has almost 50 crore beneficiaries. And alongside that, you have the digital public infrastructure. Now we are using technology more efficiently to give subsidies and also give them avenues of empowerment. And there are micro schemes like Mudra loans, which is already given to almost 58 crore accounts so far. Most of them are women.
But Anil, the schemes were always there. We always had employment schemes. We always had social benefit schemes. We always had the filtration that never happened. What I see the change is that we are no longer talking about schemes. We are talking about it's done. It's what is called saturation. Saturation means 100%. So if you're talking about housing, everybody has pakka ghar. If you talk about water, everybody has water. If you talk about electricity, every last village and last outpost electrified. What is changed in this? Oftentimes when we speak with ministers in government, they speak about Gati Shakti and do it quickly and coordinate well amongst departments. We were just stuck. What has changed that this saturation concept, this is one and we're done. It's finished, not just hoping to do it in the next 20, 30 years. What has changed?
See, the fundamental shift has been the Prime Minister and the government telling, and with credibility, telling them that people's aspirations are different now. In the 70s and all, during the time of Mrs. Indira Gandhi also, while she was the Prime Minister, then and all the slogans was Roti, Kapda, Makan. This was what people were essentially expecting. Now our government has already created all that, and now we are taking them to another realm altogether, where it's no longer basic essentials. Now we are actually giving them many more other avenues of empowerment to almost every household, where they can come up and they can come up from their own stations of where they are, and they can be a part of the India growth story. I'll just give one example, which, for example, there is a policy called Mudra Yojana. This one particular scheme, most of the beneficiaries, almost 60-70% of the beneficiaries are women. And in the last 12 years, almost 58 crore accounts have got almost similar quantum of funds into them. And these are all loans up to 20 lakhs without even security. And people are creating small and medium enterprises based on that. And lakhs of jobs have been created. Lakhs of women have been empowered. Many of the schemes you are talking about also, like, it's actually women are the main beneficiaries. Now, many sectors are being opened up, which is all forward looking. Now, you look at space, for example. Like, in 2014, India had like almost 400 to 500 recognized startups. Then in 2022, something that happened was we opened up the space sector. And now just in 4 years, there are 400 startups just in space. Many of them have become unicorns, and young people are getting empowered. So we are looking at India's crucial demographics: women, youth, farmers, poor people, and we are having targeted schemes which is meant to empower them. We want to ensure that they all have mobility. The best can be a part of the global ecosystems. Rest of them, we are giving them different tools, including DPI, where they can scale nationally.
Yeah.
So even from tier 4 cities, they can access national and global markets. So these are all.
A few months ago, we actually did a dipstick test, because you talk about the schemes, you get the reports, very nice. It looks very good on paper. So dipsticks test is you actually travel in the villages and actually see. And anywhere in India you will go, if you travel to a village, you see some Hindu families, some Muslim families, Christian families, Sikh families. And actually, it was transformative. And I remember when I interviewed the Prime Minister, asking him this question. And he's mentioned that not even the opposition says that in our implementation of the schemes, there any bhedbhav. If you want a house, 50% of the houses, the woman is a part beneficiary or the sole owner. Property is so important. It is the economic weight in a family. If the property is in your name, Jan Dhan Yojana, although women are beneficiaries, and it is transformative. I know a lot of work still needs to get done. But the reason this is so important, of course, is the social contract which you're talking about, which you elucidate, is that people now know that this is not just at a macro level we are working on industrial scale, that the benefit will translate to us. We will get it, and then their aspiration will rise. The person who gets the pakka ghar then wants to buy a mobikes, then is expecting better sanitation, is expecting better roads, many things. But let's do it sector specific, because the book is divided into some interesting sectors before it culminates in a geostrategic overview. This is my favorite. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason it is my favorite is because of practical importance. Mobile phone in my hand, okay? Every single device you're watching this interview on, what does it have? It probably has a battery, it has a screen, and it has chips, silicon chips. And for my entire lifetime, we have never made those critical components in India. And that has changed. The factories are coming up all over the country, from the northeast to the west, from the north to the south. And within months, India will be manufacturing top level technology. I mean, talking about 30, 40 and lower nanometer chips within this country. Now, Anil, you mentioned in this book that 20% of the world's chip designers come from India. This is an industry you worked in. So the brains was there, it was being poached abroad. If we can nail the manufacturing, what changes fundamentally?
See, we can crack the semiconductor ecosystem, it changes everything. Like you already mentioned, any device you see around, from a smartphone to even the missiles and rockets to the space devices, everything, the basic brain are the tiny chips. And now you look at it, we almost import 100% of our semiconductors even now. And it is going in a trajectory where, especially with the explosion of technology, like with IoTs, with devices coming up, with consumption coming up, by 2030, this import of semiconductors is projected to be even higher than our oil imports. This is the trajectory we are going at. So one is this massive, export-import difference. Alongside that, this is the core component if we want to be a sovereign Atmanirbhar country. Like every single sector we are having as a national mission, from defense and space to communication, everywhere this is the fundamental. And this is where now we are trying to create capacity, and we are going in the right direction. Now you look at the global semiconductor system, like ecosystem. We have the talent. 20% of our chip designers are in India. We design a lot of chips. But 90% of high-end chips and 60% of chips are created in one single country, which is Taiwan. Then every other country, from the United States, European Union, China, they are all trying to ramp up capacity. The United States have, during President Biden's time itself, around 50 to 60 billion of additional funds were allotted for the CHIPS Act. EU has allotted around 20 billion euros for it. China is allotting tens of billions for it. And one of the biggest previous governments had also tried, but none of them could succeed because of multiple reasons, including lack of expertise and even the lack of funds. So now what our government under the Prime Minister, something which we are doing is we are doing this in a very systematic manner, where in the last few years itself, just last week there was the cabinet meeting where the Semicon 2 program was announced, and it's a support system of around 1.27 lakh crores. Already around 1.64 lakh crores of projects have been allotted, which is 12 different projects. And these 12 different projects itself in the next few years is expected to create 20 billion plus chips on an annual basis.
And think about it, they're going to start sometime end of this year. The first chips will start
Yes.
rolling out. And I know this is not going to be cutting edge 2 or 3 nanometer, but we are almost there. And we when we organize our NXT conference, discuss quantum computing startups India has not heard of, just like the space startups you hadn't heard of, but they just launched into space a few days ago, Vikram. So there is obviously, you have to build it scale up, right? If you want to build a battery, then you have to first find the lithium. Okay, I know lithium prospecting is going on. There's thorium in your home state in Kerala. Lithium prospecting is going on. The first lithium mine in India has opened in Chhattisgarh a few months ago. First one, prospecting is going on currently in Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh as well. Then you have to have the technology. But on top of all of this, something that we in India think that we are really good at is the software stack. Where if you think 20% of the chip designers were India, the Pentium chip was designed by an Indian. That the software stack that we'll be very good at building. But the truth is, Anil, that on the software stack, we are struggling. If you look at the big tech majors in this country, they're offering services like food delivery or cab delivery. It's not frontline software stack creation. Zoho is probably an example that, has come up because a lot of government systems have shifted to this instead of MS Word and MS Office. Why are we not dominating the software stack space?
So here, I will look at it in different perspective. It is a fact that, okay, many of our Indian firms are not as big as the big tech players abroad. Now you look at the 10 largest firms in the world, 8 are tech firms, 5 based out of the United States, 3 based out of China.
Yes.
And then but at the same time, you look at India, we are the third largest startup ecosystem. We are the fastest growing digital economy and we are growing. Now we have 120 unicorns here, but there are in certain sectors. Now how India is looking at it, we are looking at a more strategic aspect also. Because essentially for a long time, the Startup India program was there. But we were supporting startups and most of the startups were coming which was catering to the markets. But now our thoughts are becoming more strategic, where there are certain critical areas where we would like our startup ecosystem to grow. And the government is willing to support them grow also. And I would say at this moment, we are one of the very few countries in the world which is actually having that holistic picture of, let's say, creating the entire tech or AI stack. Maybe there are 4 or 5 countries in the world that are doing it, and we are one of them. And we are doing it in a very targeted manner. Like, for example, now we are, you asked, like, why are we not able to scale? One of the biggest reasons is, again, there are a lot of funds required to create foundational LLMs, which are in generative AI platforms, whether it is OpenAI, whether it is, Claude, all of them, the R&D itself is in billions of dollars.
And you have to burn cash for
Yes, and they all require tremendous amount of computing power. And even companies like Google, companies like OpenAI, they all already has allotted hundreds of thousands of GPUs for the processing. So capacity is a core element here. And these are some of the areas where now the government, because this is not something which the private sector can immediately do, because these are high risk opportunities with a lot of uncertainty. So now we have an AI mission. The mission has already allotted around 78,000 GPUs for processing, which is now lended to various startups which would like to use it. Similarly, AI India mission is now supporting around 20 foundational models, which are the most important drivers of this entire AI ecosystem. 3-4 of them are rated as frontier models. There is Sarvam and BharatNet and all. Those models are fairly, they are up to what even some of the global frontier and foundational models were around 12 to 18 months back. Their initial models and our models are fairly compatible. But here the challenge is, just like how semiconductors came, there was a Moore's law. It's at that computational capacity almost double every year. In this AI system, it is much more faster than even Moore's law, where every month things are exponentially changing. Sarvam created and their latest LLM. It has around 105 billion parameters, which was similar to what GPT was having like 12, 16 months back. But now the global frontier models are all having trillions of parameters. So we are catching up, but we are moving fast.
Okay.
And we are one of the few countries which actually has the vision to create the whole ecosystem.
I would want to discuss every chapter page by page, but I know our time is limited. So I want to touch upon an interesting point for people who are watching. In my entire lifetime, okay, the two biggest expenditures for our exchequer in terms of foreign currency, oil, defense. World's largest defense importer. That is changing, and is changing not so much that we will become indigenous in terms of can we supply our own armed forces with indigenous technology, which is more secure, state of the art, but potentially defense exports. I mean, we're looking at Astra, BrahMos, which are being sold. How much of a game changer is this? What is changed, and how does this fundamentally change how India's economics works?
See our current defense trajectory, it is changing a lot of aspects. Like one, the Atmanirbharta is not just a slogan. It is something which is very essential for us to ensure that we become a global power, like we remain a global power. And something that has happened in the last 10, 12 years, again, there have been concerted efforts to create capacity. Now we are one of the few countries which has our own indigenous aircraft carrier. Now, different systems, like we once used to be a predominant importer. Now, 70% of the expenditure are actually indigenous products. Only 30% is export.
So until a few years ago, even bullets we had to import.
Yes.
Jackets we were importing.
So this was the state many years back. Now things have drastically changed, and now we are our defense exports have increased from a few hundred crores to almost 50,000 crores. And the bigger impact is that we are almost exporting to 100 different countries, especially to many African countries, many other countries in the global south. And that is giving us a lot of global heft also, because now we can be a security provider to almost 100 different countries through our own efforts. And here also, these are all, and it's proven also. Like for example, during Operation Sindoor, it was a combination of many systems, including some of them were imported or there were JVs also. But some of the most successful systems that were used during that operation were all Indian. You had the BrahMos systems, you had the Akash and Akash, the rare defense systems, and they all proved to be very combat effective. And this could also show to the world also that now what we are making is not just something which is it's combat effective. It is effective against the
in Indonesia, Philippines, potentially the Gulf state, potentially the Saudis are all going to be clients. So you'll be earning foreign exchange for the first time rather than spending it, and it's a game changer. But it's also a thought process change. Again, a thing in my entire lifetime was Pakistan, because every few months or few years there would be some terror attack, and they say that it's the most foolish thing to do is to perform the same experiment with the same parameters and keep expecting different results. You write a chapter on adaptive defense. That something is being adapted, something is different. Now, if you look at Pakistan, in Balochistan, in Sindh, in POK, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, on the Afghan border, let alone the economic turmoil, they are facing real issues all internally while we are on an economic growth trajectory. What is adaptive defense?
See, the paradigm of defense have changed quite a lot over a period of time, and now it is getting more and more evident. Long time back, people used to compartmentalize everything. Like when defense was spoken about, it was mainly border security or like a lot of symmetric challenges. But now you look at it across the world, there are conflicts that are happening, and most of the conflicts right now, the biggest dangers are not coming from the old conventional symmetric threats. Now it is more and more asymmetric, where drones are a part of it, cybersecurity is a part of it, even vulnerability to a lot of your critical infrastructure, from your banking systems to your transportation systems, your water systems, your nuclear systems. So these kind of vulnerabilities to critical infrastructure is also a key aspect of warfare, even during non-war times. Then you have a lot of conventional issues also. So, and technology is a factor in all of them. So now something how our armed forces, our policymakers, they all look at defense in a much more integrated manner, where it is not just protecting your borders, it is also protecting your critical infrastructure, it is also protecting your transportation and power systems, it is also ensuring that cyber threats are alleviated. Now you had data cables underwater, which actually and they are the ones through which 99% of the internet traffic comes from. That is also vulnerable. Then, so how do you protect all this? Finally, the country can only be secure when all these aspects are secure, and for that you need a very integrated approach. And this is the approach which our government and the armed forces is having.
It's a thought process difference. Now, I know you mentioned space, but given the context in which we are having this, because a milestone, India has become only the third country in the world to have a private sector space launch reaching orbit with Skyroot and Vikram, named after Vikram Sarabhai, just literally a few days ago. Agnikul, and there are so many that are working on Galaxy Eye and Bellatrix and Pixel. There are so many of these private sector startups that are providing now services based on space. 40,000 satellites is what Elon is going to put into space just for his system to provide the internet. Then Jeff Bezos is going to try to do the same thing. Then Indian entrepreneurs will want the same. So it's an emerging market, the final frontier. How exciting is the space industry with these companies now becoming unicorns?
This is one of the sectors I would say is one of the most happening and exciting sectors in India. The sector was open to the private sector only 2-3 years back.
Yeah.
But ISRO and our public sector was always world class in this sector, and we were always there. But now the fundamental shift is again scale, where now after opening up the sector, suddenly we have almost 400 unicorns in the sector. Now our private sector is sending spatial orbital vehicles. Now they themselves are collaborating with many foreign space agencies, where they are the service providers for many of them, including to NASA.
Yeah.
So things are changing drastically, and at this moment, within 3 years, the sector in India has become an 8 billion market. So it's a new market that has been created. Still, our market share is only around 2% of the global market. And still there are exciting new areas that are coming up, like space tourism, space mining. And we are having startups that are looking at all these areas. And our Prime Minister himself is very invested in this particular sector, where he wants the sector to grow. And the target we have set is 10% of the global market in the next decade, which itself will be hundreds of billion worth of industry, which will be giving white collar jobs, blue collar jobs, manufacturing jobs.
The exciting thing, of course, is going to be Mission Gaganyaan, and just like Chandrayaan was so exciting, landing on the moon and seeing the first photographs of that Vikram lander on the moon. So that's on the exciting front, which is what ISRO is doing. But the more mundane, which is with the space businesses, which is putting these small 2, 3, 5 kilogram satellites into space for internet or photography or remote sensing and other things. That's the exciting part, is more mundane, but this earns foreign revenue. You would probably be the cheapest in terms of per kilogram of weight put into space, and you compete with Elon. You take him on with a startup which nobody had heard of a few months ago, believe it or not. But in this entire context, there is the larger picture, and we began with there, and I want to end there. Is a translation of how this impacts people. Now, you can say space impacts, of course, defense security is so important for us. Something we've missed, in which Anil mentions a dedicated chapter in this book. Green energy has been a cliche again through our entire lifetime. In the past 5 years, India has increased its solar capacity by 3 times, 3x, from about 50 gigawatt hours to 160 gigawatt hours. In the next 5 years, it will go up 3x more. 40% of our peak, which is midday power consumption capacity, can now come from solar. This has happened at a scale which is almost unimaginable. You speak of hydrogen, there's I know a lot of debate right now going on ethanol. In terms of our energy matrix, How's it changing?
And see, the bigger our economy grows, right now a 4 trillion economy, by the end of this decade, the bigger our economy grows, the more affluent our population becomes. Energy consumption is also going to be a factor which is going to increase drastically. According to the International Energy Agency, already we consume around 15% of the world's energy, and it's only going to increase. And for us, who have given a commitment that by 2070 we will be net zero, because we also believe in this, believe that the world should be very sustainable. Like, it is important that we transform from conventional to many of these renewable over a period of time. And something that has very successfully happened is now we are doing it at a scale again, just like every other sector, which is unprecedented. Like you mentioned about solar increasing 3 times, but you look at a larger time period. You look at the last 15 years, actually solar capacity itself has increased over 100 times. So it's a massive scale. Now every other sector also we are having ambitious plans. In nuclear we are having very ambitious plans, where from 5 you want to scale it to 100 gigawatts by 2047. We are creating a very unique matrix where every single of these renewables will be contributing in a tremendous manner, where hopefully the target is 50% of the total will be renewable by sometime this decade. And we are going in the right direction.
And what I find fascinating is that it's happening all over India. So if UP is becoming synonymous with electronics manufacturing, and now they have a 6-7 gigawatt AI data center implementation plan. The silicon factories are being built from northeast to Gujarat. Okay. Space sector is Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. There's a second spaceport which is being built in Tamil Nadu. So these technological sectors are changing. I can talk about ports and trades and things that's changing, but we are short on time, and I want to go back, like I said, to the larger picture, because you end this book speaking about the new world order. Okay, that it is positioned with what happened in the Yalta conference, what happened then in Bretton Woods, which created the World Bank and the W2 and the economic systems, financial systems that we recognize them. What changes here? Where are we part of the story in this?
See, most of the current global systems that exist now, and they all serve their time and they have been very effective also. But over a period of time, they have become fairly cut off from current world realities and future trajectories. Like now you look at any of these large global organizations, the people who are driving it, they have a much disproportionately less influence than what they had when the World War ended. And many of the emerging countries, especially from the global south, etc., were never a part of many of these conversations. But now they are the fastest growing countries in the world. They are the fastest growing regions in the world. Now the E7, the emerging 7, is even growing at a much greater rate than the G7, and the gap between all of them are decreasing more and more. So India is one of the few countries which is now telling that it should be more equitable, where we are not saying that the current order should be completely disrupted, but it has to be reformed in a genuine manner, because if reforms are not there, then over a period of time they do get antiquated. Now you look at the UN Security Council. For a long time, because of its own structural situation, it has been very difficult for the UNSC to have any kind of unanimous resolution, and one of the big 5 vetoes it, then it doesn't matter. Similarly, many of the financial organizations, etc., got its own biases also. So India, on one hand, we are working with all the existing structures to make it more equitable. At the same time, we are also trying to create more focused new systems also, which can actually provide real world solutions. Like we were a part of the International Solar Alliance, where almost 100 plus countries are now a part of it, and we are trying to make the entire world sustainable, with the Prime Minister's Life Mission also a key ingredient in it. Similarly, we are working on the Global Biofuel Alliance. We are working on the coalition of critically vulnerable islands. So there are quite a lot of these minilaterals and many of these forums that India has taken the initiative to create to solve real world solution, where we are calling global partners to work on global solutions. So, and all this is happening because of the capacity we are creating internally, which is giving us credibility and also giving us the ability to play a bigger global and diplomatic heft, which is already visible across the world. And over a period of time, when the world gets, like the way things are going, it is getting more and more disruptive and more unstable. And with India's growing heft, it will be possible for India to play a larger role in bringing global stability and also be a security provider in many areas. And that is the trajectory India is evolving in.
It's an outlook change that one can see happening. We're out of time, Anil, but if you want to leave our viewers with some advice on why they should read this book, what it would be?
See, our country has had a fantastic trajectory, especially in the last few years. And there is a lot of exciting work that is happening in this country, especially in critical sectors, and especially when it comes to empowering our most important demographics. And all this is, with all the chaos around sometimes, like people do miss on many of these things that are great things that are happening in India. Like I would say these are unprecedented things that are happening in India. 250 million, 24 crore people have been elevated out of poverty in the last 10 years. These are all unprecedented alongside many other things that are happening. And it will be good for the country to, my fellow citizens to actually, have a glance of all this.
I'll use the word exciting, because if you want to get excited about India, more importantly, if you want to get excited, if you're young, okay, you're coming out of college, university, thinking, where do I want to work? Where do I want to, build my startup? This is giving you a compendium of where we are coming and where we are evolving. So yes, in the private defense space, in the space sector, in the semiconductor sector, the entire ecosystems have to be built, not just one factory. This is going to be exciting for you to read, to think about where we want to be, where we want to work, where we want to be engineers, where we want to be founders in the next 10 years. So watch out for this book. It's available now. Watch out for Anil Antony, and more importantly, watch out for Bharat. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.